Welcome to Raw Conscious Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Cheney. Here, I dive deep into extraordinary journeys, out-of-body experiences, near-death awakenings, encounters with the paranormal, the unexplained, unseen, and deeply spiritual. You will hear from real people sharing raw, unfiltered stories. Settle in, get ready for a conversation that might shift your consciousness. Today's guest is Betty. Betty has an incredible, powerful, life-changing experience, and I'm so grateful and thankful to have you here today. Betty, welcome.
Thank you, Tammy. Thanks for your service to the collective by creating conscious space to have these cool conversations.
Yes. So why don't you go ahead and start? Go ahead and start during your childhood, because just that experience alone really just sets the stage.
Yeah, I grew up in this really chaotic, dysfunctional family fueled by addiction and poverty and sexual trauma. And I thought that my life was very regular growing up. I thought that it was regular to get evicted and start packing all of your shit because there was some big sign on your door. I thought that it was normal not to have electricity, but to borrow electricity from the building or from your neighbor with a long orange extension cord. I thought that it was regular to steal your groceries. I thought that it was regular to steal toys and clothes. I thought that all those things were very regular. And it took me years to realize that my life was abnormal. It wasn't until I started getting around other kids and visiting their houses, and their houses didn't smell like cigarettes and cat piss and shame and alcohol. Their houses smelled like cookies and love and warmth. And their dads would go away on weekend business trips. And my dad went away for the weekend in handcuffs to jail. And so I just realized as I got older that my life did not look like other people's lives.
Yes. Wow. And I can wholly relate with you in a way that didn't include handcuffs and all that other stuff that's in your life. So I fully relate with what you're saying, and I fully relate with what you mean by you thought it was normal. I thought it was
Yeah.
normal too until I went to somebody else's house and I was like, wait a minute, what's normal, mine or theirs?
Right.
But
Yes.
so go ahead.
Yeah, I think I experienced like a great feeling of embarrassment when I realized that my life wasn't like other people's lives. But I just kept going with it because you don't really have much of a choice, right? Like you're born into the family that you're born into. And so I
Yeah.
would just do things to avoid. So like if somebody wanted to come to my house, I would say, "Oh no, I'd rather go to your house." Or I just didn't want anybody to be exposed to the level of dysfunction that was going on in my home.
Mhm.
And my parents were both drug addicts, and their addiction really progressed over the course of my life. When I was in high school, it had gotten really bad. It was like the height of the Oxycontin epidemic, and my parents were just always out of their minds, obliterated. And my mom thought that she was the cool mom, and she would like feed my friends pills, and like my dad would let us smoke weed in
Mm.
the house and drink, and he would buy us alcohol. And like I'm sure that they thought that they were being cool, but I don't know. It was just like so out of hand. And then, a couple years out of high school in 2007, my parents ended up committing suicide together because their drug addiction was just it was insane. And they didn't see any way out of it. They didn't know that you could go to rehab, you could stop using drugs, that there's a whole nother way to live your life. They just did what everybody else in our family did to get off of drugs, and that was die. So they didn't wait until they overdosed. They just took the decision into their own hands and changed the course of my life forever.
Mhm. So now, in this chaos that you were growing up in, eventually you began to start using yourself. What age do you remember what age you were when you began to start dabbling?
Yeah, I think the first time I ever drank alcohol and smoked a cigarette, I was probably 10. But I
Mm.
was an everyday drug user from the ages of 15 to 35. I was an everyday drug user.
Wow. And what, at that time, what was the drug of choice?
Oh, I've had many. More is my drug of choice, just anything you got. But at 15, my drug of choice was methamphetamine. I grew up in
Mhm.
Las Vegas, so it was like just kind of coming out, and it was very, very popular in the late 90s. And, I was like a good student. I was in like honors classes, and this girl from one of my honors classes came over and she said, "Hey, do you want to stay up all night and study? I found this stuff that helps you stay up all night and study." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And once I had my first little taste of that drug, it was like, I will never study ever again. My whole life will just be using this drug. And I stayed on that drug for like 4 years. Like, really, I couldn't, there was no escaping it. And then I went to rehab. I mean, I guess it was more like 3 years. I was 18 the first time I went to rehab, and my parents shipped me away across the country, and I never touched it again after that. Like, I educated myself on it. I was like, ew, this is made of battery acid and battery fluid and matchstick heads and fucking, like, it was
Wow.
disgusting, the stuff that's inside of it. It's like poison. And I was like, I'm never going to use this again. And I didn't. I never used it again until I did. But after that, like, pills were my drug of choice. I was really into opiates. One day pills turned into heroin, and then
Mhm.
heroin became my drug of choice. Alcohol is a huge part of my story. I was a raging alcoholic at one point in my life. I was drinking a half a gallon of vodka every day. I would start drinking the
Wow.
second my eyes opened, and I would keep drinking until I blacked out at night. That was the absolute worst. But and at some point in my addiction process, I became a psychedelic addict. I used to eat like sheets and sheets of acid, and like,
Mhm.
I was a dumpster for drugs. I just wanted to not feel. I was a deeply traumatized person, and I hated being present in the memory of my past and the fear of my future. And so I just stayed really strung out on drugs.
So now, your parents at the time were strung out, and now you're strung out, and they send you off to some sort of a rehab. That's
Very,
so
yeah,
so
hypocritical.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
so now, when you went across country, what kind of program did they put you in?
I just they sent me to my aunt's house, and my aunt put me in she put me
Okay.
in like a rehab, and then like intensive outpatient at where she
Mhm.
lived in New Jersey. And yeah, like, the problem was is that I was strung out on meth, and my
Mhm.
parents were taking prescription drugs from the doctor and drinking alcohol, and both of those
Mhm.
things are legal. So even though my parents were raging drug addicts, it
Mhm.
wasn't like to the point of, ew, like, meth is disgusting. That's for toothless hicks
Mhm.
that live in trailers. Like, we don't do that. So there was
Mhm.
some kind of hierarchy in the drug use. Like, it's okay for them to be strung out on pills, but their daughter can't be strung out on meth. And then even when I became strung out on pills, it was more accepted than being strung out on meth.
Right, right. So now, at some point in time in this life that you were living, you ended up having a near death like experience. So,
Right.
if you want to go ahead and go into that and talk about what led up to that, and mhm.
Yeah. Well, I overdosed, which is not surprising because, like I said, I was a dumpster for drugs. And that was in March of 2019, on right on the spring equinox is when my awakening happened. Spring equinox and the beginning of the season of Aries, which is the symbol of rebirth. So I think that there's some serious symbolism around when my awakening took place.
Mhm.
And I just took too much. I had to do my laundry that day, and I was like, laundry sucks, bleh, whatever. So, like, let me get really, really high to go do this laundry. And I just took a little bit extra of all. I mean, I used an insane amount of drugs on the regular, but I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll do a little bit extra. And my body just couldn't take it. And my near death like experience involved a life review, was the first part of it.
Mhm.
And I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening in this process, which is like life force energy. That's what Kundalini translates into. And it was like my whole soul became activated and online. And it was like bouncing up and down, like from my crown chakra to my root chakra. This rush of energy was just going up and down, up and down, up and down. And it was causing me to experience my whole life from my perspective and from other people's perspectives. And then it was causing me to experience all of life, not just my life. Like everything that's ever happened on earth was happening. It was like this large collective life review. And as my spirit was going up and down, experiencing cosmic joy and fear and, like going up and down, when it felt like as my spirit was hitting my third eye and my crown chakra, after banging it over and over and over again, eventually a door opened and my soul shot out of my head and started to like really experience. I had an intense out of body experience. I could see my body blasted out on my bathroom floor. I was naked. Yeah, it was just like the most intense experience you could ever imagine. Like I was experiencing all this horror that I had put other people through. Because in my life, I traumatized a lot of people. Like I was a traumatized person. All I know to do is to inflict trauma on other people because that makes me feel powerful. That makes me feel safe. That makes me feel like I have some control in my life that is totally insane and out of control. And so I experienced just an intense level of pain that made me feel like I was drowning in hell. I experienced my parents' suicide from their point of view and my point of view. And it was just heinous, horrendous. It was terrible. And then I started to hear this masculine voice come into my perception, and it was saying, you are worthy of all the love in the universe. You are worthy of all the love in the universe. And the voice started to morph into the voice of my father. And so, I didn't believe that I was worthy of any kind of love because I was like trapped in hell is what it felt like. But I did know my dad's voice and I did trust it. So I just followed his voice. And that's when I traveled into the light of the experience. And the light of the experience felt like bliss and joy and reunion. It felt like a trillion orgasms on top of every cell inside of your body. It was just like the most ecstatic feeling that you could ever imagine. And it felt like home. It not like home where all your shit is, like home. I don't, there's no words. Like there's just, I wish that there was better language. I wish I could invent a word. Like I haven't yet, but it felt so blissful, so incredible. And while I was in the light, I was told that I'm a divine spiritual soldier, that I had signed up for a mission to come to Earth, and that the mission was to liberate consciousness, and that I was here for the great awakening of the planet. And that was going to be from shifting the level of consciousness from a third dimensional level of thinking to a fifth dimensional level of thinking. And that I was going to carry out this mission. And like, I don't know what's going on because like, I don't know what the Great Awakening is. I don't know what a spiritual soldier is. I don't know what 3D versus 5D is, but I just have a very deep knowing that everything that I'm being told is absolute 1,000% truth. I don't question it. Like how when we're here, like we question everything. Like, oh, okay, here's a coupon. What is this coupon about? Like, let me read the fine print. Like, I don't understand. And then you ask like all these questions. Not there. There, I was like, they are telling me a statement of fact. I don't even know how to question it. There is no way to question anything. It's just like, okay, I accept. I accept everything that I receive. I am accepting everything that I am receiving. And then my awareness went over to another scene, and I was taken through the details of my pre-birth plan. I was told that I, as a soul, had actually designed my whole life before I ever came to Earth. I was shown that I had chosen all of these life experiences. It looked in my mind's eye like I was in a spiritual supermarket, and lining the walls of the grocery store aisles were these big, gigantic cereal boxes, and every cereal box had a life experience on it. And I'm grabbing everything, every life experience. I'm like, prostitution? That seems interesting. Let's see what that's like. Homelessness? Okay, fun. Let's do it. And it felt like every time that I touched a box, I would get a download of what that experience would feel like. But in this scene, I'm an infinite immortal soul. I don't have any perception of how a human personality integrates an experience. I only know as a soul, I touch the box of prostitution and I'm like, that's a little yucky. That kind of feels uncomfortable. Whatever, it's fine. Throw it in the cart. Homelessness, yeah, that stings a little bit. We'll throw it in the cart, right? Because my soul doesn't understand linear time because it lives in an infinite space. And so it doesn't know that, I will be dealing with the repercussions and the experience of prostitution for over 15 years in my life. And it doesn't know what 15 years is. And, this happened with everything. Like I grabbed a life experience of addiction. But when I grabbed the life experience of addiction, because we live in a dual reality, the life experience of recovery also comes out with the box. Now, some souls don't get an opportunity to experience both sides of that experience, like my parents. They didn't get past the life lesson of addiction. But I do believe that because we live in a dual reality and because we are in the midst of the Great Awakening, everybody is meant to experience both sides of an experience. Sometimes it happens in multiple lifetimes, and sometimes it can happen in one lifetime. And it just depends where you're at in your journey. And neither thing is right or wrong. Like there is no such thing as, there's no connotation in heaven. It's just experience. So I'm grabbing all of these things, right? So I grab poverty. I also grab abundance. But like in this space, when I'm like a homeless meth head prostitute strung out on heroin. When I'm in the space of eternity, that's where addiction took me back to. It took me back to meth, took me to levels of degradation and dereliction that I didn't even know existed. And so in my near-death-like experience, I pick up, I see, oh yeah, I chose poverty. That makes sense. I have been impoverished my whole life. But then I see like, oh, I also picked abundance. Like, I don't even know what the fuck that word means. I've never even heard that word. So like, I just think that some of the shit in my cart is filler, like recovery and abundance and spiritual community and spiritual awakening. That's not part of my picture. Anyway, so like in this space, I'm getting all this information. I'm also told that I have to go back into the body that I just came from. And if I refuse, which I was refusing, because like, ew, gross, please don't make me go back into her. If I refuse to go back into this body, that I would be reborn into a baby, not as a punishment. Like, it wasn't like, we're making you go back. Like, you will be reborn if you don't do this. They said to me, you have been training for lifetimes for this particular lifetime, and we are not going to let you miss your opportunity. You are on earth at the most exciting time to be on earth. Great shifts are going to be happening as a result of all of the work that each and every one of you are doing. Mm-hmm. And I was just so not interested. I was like, please, like, don't make me go back. And they said that the first part of my life was boot camp. And boot camp is gross. They're like doing 1,000 push-ups in the mud. There's a ball guy screaming in your face. It's raining sideways. It's freezing. You're homesick. It's terrible. But they told me that the next part of my life that I would be going back to was going to be carrying out the divine mission. That I was going to have soulmates and kindred spirits and mentors and communities. And I was going to be living in spiritual awareness. I was going to have connection to them. All I had to do was just trust them. And I was like, why would I do that? You guys suck. You're sending me back to earth. I don't trust you. And that was it. And I woke up on my bathroom floor. I shook my head. I said, damn, I was so high that I thought I was talking to God. I was so high that I thought I planned my life. Yeah, right. That's ridiculous. And I just wrote the whole thing off as drug-induced psychosis because all I knew was that I took a bunch of drugs and then I thought that I was in heaven.
And so now, had you never, in any of your drug psychosis, had you never had a experience that seemed spiritual like this?
No. And I ate a lot of psychedelics and I never had anything that felt spiritual. I definitely had experiences where like I felt smarter. Like now in hindsight, I can see it. Like, yeah, I was probably unlocking different layers of consciousness. But I just thought like, I am a smart prostitute now. I will figure out a business plan for my business. And I had overdosed before and nothing happened. Like I just woke up in a hospital bed. There was no experience. There was no blackness. It was just like, take your drugs, lights out, wake up in a hospital bed.
So now, once you had this experience, things began to, at that point, unfold for you where you tried to blow it off, pretend like this didn't happen, and then still go right back into obtaining drugs or trying to obtain drugs. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, like I just went back to living my life the way that I had always been living it, and then the universe really stepped in and said, "No, girl, you need to go onto your divine mission. We told you. We told you that you were here for a mission, and you have to stop this. Like, this is crazy." And they made all my drug dealers disappear out of my life, like literally, men that I had been dealing with for 10 years. Like, I'm talking about, I had one dealer. I spoke to him every single day for 10 years of my life. Okay. That is like a for real, I thought it was a friendship, but like it was definitely a great business partnership,
Mhm.
and he just cut me off. I called him. He was like, "Don't ever call me again. I found Jesus. I want to be a good father. I'm out of the game." And he blocked me. And I was
Mhm.
like, "This is crazy." And then, but I was like, "Whatever. I have other drug dealers. It's fine." Like, I think it's weird and I'm kind of heartbroken, but like, whatever. And I called up my next dealer and he said the same thing to me. But these guys didn't know each other. He said also that he found Jesus and that he was out of the game and he blocked me. And then so did five other men. It was crazy. And so then I just like went on out onto the streets of New York to find drugs, and which is totally attainable. And every time that I would go by off of the street, like the drugs would be fake, they would be bunk, they were whack, they wouldn't work. It would start raining, they would get wet. I couldn't use them. There'd be a hole in my pocket that I didn't know about. And by the time I made it home, they would be gone. Everything that could happen to get me off of drugs was happening. And I was going through heroin withdrawal, and I experienced a spontaneous healing where I saw these two little men in white lab coats come into my mind's eye. They had lawnmowers and they started plowing through all of my neural pathways. And it was like every crevice in my mind. They were going through them. And I just felt like these hot, intense tingles as they were going through my head. And then when they were finished, there was this bright white flash, and I was instantaneously healed out of day 3 of heroin withdrawal, which is the
Wow.
absolute worst day. I mean, like, it's the day when you're sick all over yourself, you're welcoming death, your bones feel like they're made of fire, and your blood is made of lava, and everything hurts. Like, my fingernails hurt, probably from holding on for dear life. Like, everything ached. And then all of a sudden, I was totally fine. And like, it was like
Mhm.
nothing had ever happened. And I was completely well and healed. And it was a real, true miracle. And yeah, like, I threw myself on the ground and I was crying out to God and I was saying, "I don't believe in you. I don't believe in God. I don't believe that this could actually happen. I definitely don't believe that this could happen to me. I'm not worthy of this. Why would you do this? I'm not worthy of this." And I just kept hearing them say, "But you're worthy of all the love in the universe. You're worthy of all the love in the universe." And it's not a message that I was willing to receive. I was like seriously a piece of shit person. Like, I
Mhm.
I have stories that like I would yeah, I have so many stories, just mountains of evidence of what a fucking insane mess I was. I was like a tornado in people's lives. I
Mhm.
hurt people. I got them strung out on drugs. I would prostitute women. I would prostitute myself. I would manipulate people. I would steal from them. I've done terrible things in my life. And now I'm being told that I'm worthy of all the love in the universe. And I've been instantaneously healed so that I can get off of drugs. I
Mhm.
mean, it's truly a miracle. Real, real, real miracles happening in my life.
So then, shortly after that, you ended up meeting a man, I think, on a train or a bus. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I was like very lost and broken and feeling very confused. And I was sitting on a train and I had no destination. And the whole train car was empty, which is really weird in New York because there's like 9 million people who live here. So the fact that this one train car was empty was weird. And the doors opened at a subway stop, and a man stepped inside, and he sat directly across from me, even though the whole train car was empty. And around his neck was an emblem for a 12-step fellowship, a recovery fellowship. And I heard this voice in my head, and it said, "That's your path. Follow him to a meeting." And so I asked this strange man on the train if he happened to be going to a meeting. And guess what? He was on his way to one, and he took me with him. And that was the first day of my recovery journey. So that was like 3 months after my near death like experience, about 2 weeks after my spontaneous healing. And so there was a lot of confusion in between that time. But now I felt like, okay, the universe is showing me a sign. I have to follow this man. And so I just started doing what everybody was telling me to do instead of trying to figure it out on my own. And so the next day I went to another meeting, and it was a women's meeting. And when I walked through the door, I mean, I looked crazy in active addiction. I didn't look like this. I was like sunken in. My skin was gray. My eyes were dead. I was missing most of my teeth. These are paid for. And I had these huge holes all over my face and my arms because every time I got high, I thought that bugs lived inside me. And so I would cut myself open with razor blades, and I'd burn myself with torches trying to get the bugs out of me. And so I looked fucked up. Like I looked new anyway. I looked new inside of this recovery fellowship. Like it was very obvious that I'm still in it. I'm still in the addiction. And when I walked through the door, this woman grabbed me, and she held on to me so tight, and she whispered in my ear, and she said, "You are worthy of all the love in the universe. You are worthy of all the love in the
Wow.
universe." That message, it haunts me. It just kept following me around. It still does. It follows me everywhere. But, like I had only ever heard it in my head and like in these quote unquote hallucinations. But now I'm standing in a real meeting, a real place with a real person. And she is whispering this very real spiritual message into my ear. And I just knew that I had to surrender. I had to surrender to recovery. I had to surrender to the unknown. I had to surrender to God. And that's what I did. And I checked myself into a rehab, and I stayed there for a year and a half in a long-term facility. I didn't even know how to wake up and brush my one good tooth without being high first. So I definitely needed some space and some time to figure out how to be a person. Not only be a person, but I had to figure out how to be a person living in spiritual awareness, because that wasn't part of my picture ever before. And man, I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of spiritual ego, a lot of bypassing, a lot of not understanding the true nature of reality, but just making my own shit up. And I mean, I'm still making shit up, but now it flows a little bit more authentically, at least.
Right. So now, so you said a year and a half in recovery. Where did you go from there once you got through recovery and now you're fully clean, fully healed, fully opened?
Well, I don't think that you're ever fully healed from anything while you're in a body, but I do understand what you're saying. I am a person in recovery. I don't consider myself a recovered person. Like my addiction just manifests in different ways now. But so after I left treatment, like I did what regular humans do. I got a job, I got an apartment, I found a boyfriend, I found friends, I found a community to be a part of. I found multiple communities to be a part of. I found the spiritual teachings that were going to change my life. I created my own spiritual community when I couldn't find exactly what it was that I was looking for. I became a coach. I became of service. I help other people. I mentor people. I live a life led by all the most amazing spiritual principles that I could integrate into my life. Like I'm a very honest person. Well, sometimes I go to work late, so that's kind of dishonest. But other than that, like I live my life led by honesty. I don't steal anymore. I don't manipulate people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to con people. Like I live my life in a very authentic way. That means warts and all. Like I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be human because that's what I am right now. I'm a human. I'm playing this part of a human anyway. So I'm balancing the scales between being a spiritual being, which is my true nature, and being a human being in this costume, which is the part that I'm playing right now. And so, yeah, my life has transformed in this absolutely tremendous way. And I mean, it happened little by little, and it continues to evolve and change. And I'm so here for it. I love it.
Yes. And now, in the beginning, you were talking about being a spiritual warrior on a mission. Tell me what that looks like.
Well, okay, I used to think that it looked like I had to go out and change the world. So, I was like just screaming in people's faces, like, this is what true reality is. And you don't know, I've been to heaven and you don't know anything. And we planned our lives and just like trying to like force feed my ideas down people's
Mhm.
throats. And like that's what spiritual ego does. It says, I'm right and you're wrong, or I know more. I'm more enlightened and you don't know. But that's not truth. That's just another form of ego. So what does it look like for me to be a spiritual warrior now? Well, I resonate with the teachings of Dolores Cannon. And
Yeah,
if you're unafraid, okay, so Dolores
I love
Cannon,
her.
she's the best. So in case anybody doesn't know, she's a spiritual teacher who created this kind of regression therapy called quantum healing hypnosis technique. And Dolores Cannon regressed maybe tens of thousands of people
Mhm.
back into the life to connect with their souls and find out like, what the fuck are we doing here? And she discovered this information about these 3 waves of volunteers. Now, when I found this information, I was like, holy shit. Okay, now it makes sense what I heard in the space of eternity, because they told me that I was the bravest volunteer. And so then I find this information and I'm like, holy shit, this is like an actual real thing. Like, okay, I am a brave volunteer. It wasn't just like some psychosis. So in the 3 waves of volunteers, I identify as a second wave volunteer. And basically, second wave volunteers are meant to do nothing, which is like, what a great mission. Thank you so much, guys. But it's just really about like holding your light. So it's not about preaching or teaching or proselytizing or converting or starting a cult or anything like that. It's just you stay here and you hold the light in the midst of the chaos. Now, like
Mhm.
I live in New York City, like I am surrounded by chaos, truly. And so I know that spirit has put me here in this location just to be a light. Again, like sometimes I'm really good at it and sometimes I suck at it. But every day I'm trying, and I'm just
Mhm.
being true to myself. And that's really my mission, is to be true to myself.
Yes. Wow. What an incredible, incredible journey you've been on. I'd like to go into where you are in the collective, because you do have a YouTube channel. I believe is it Buddha Betty or?
Yeah.
Yes, you have a YouTube channel. I see your messages all the time on Facebook. And what else do you have going on in your life that goes along with this?
Yes, thanks, Tammy. So yeah, I do. I'm on social media. My handle on everything is Buddha Betty. It's a play on words. I'm not really a Buddha, not yet. But besides that, I have this organization that I founded called The Wheel, and our
Mhm.
website is wearetheWheel.com. And we host retreats, we have in-person gatherings, but our real heartbeat is that we have this free virtual community where anybody can come and join conscious conversation. We have meetings almost every day of the week, at different times so that they're time zone friendly for different parts of the world. Anybody can start a group, anybody can hold a space. Like it's so community led. There's no board of directors, there's no leaders. It's governed by God and it's governed by group conscience. So what I did was like I took things from different parts of my life. Like in 12-step fellowship, there are no leaders. Like it's everything is governed by spirit and by group conscience. And I was like, that's such a great thing. Like, yes, we need more of that. Let's see if I can make it work inside of a spiritual organization. So like, it's still like very infancy. I mean, I've had like a sharing group going for maybe 5 years. It used to just be 4 of us. Now our sharing groups have like anywhere from 30 to 50 people. But like it's just such a cool thing. Like, to be able to connect with other people on this journey. I find that so many people feel like they are lost and that
Mhm.
nobody gets them. And they just keep affirming over and over again, nobody gets me, nobody gets me. And so then the universe, the law of attraction comes in and just says, okay, nobody gets her. Like nobody understands her. So this is a space where you're with a bunch of people who once thought the same thing, that nobody understood them. But then we created a community with ourselves to know that people get us. And yeah, I do coaching. I'm a transformation coach. I walk people through, I mean, really whatever they're dealing with. Like, it's very person centered. It's not one size fits all, but helping people manifest their dream lives, helping people cultivate courage and step out of fear, remove limiting beliefs from their life, reprogram. And yeah, I mean, like, my life is just so crazy. Like 6.5 years ago, I was sucking dick for meth, and now I help people walk through their spiritual
Right.
journeys. It's pretty wild.
Yes. Wow. That is just what an incredible journey. What a powerful message. Betty, I am so grateful and thankful that you came on and you shared your message with the guests. We're going to go ahead and close out now. So thank you, Betty, and thank you as the guest for watching. If you made it to the end, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Your words of encouragement mean a lot, not just to me, but especially to the guests who come on and share their deeply spiritual, personal experiences. These are real people and they do read the comments. The best way to support the channel is like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, stay curious and stay conscious.